Why do people migrate? Well, based on the out of Africa theory, our ancestors migrated out of that continent over 100,000 years ago. And that was due to climate change or something along those lines. But then even nowadays, people migrate because they want to have a better life, better future, and so on. In Rise of Kingdoms, it's no different. We migrate to have a better gaming experience. Now let's talk about migration in details. Now, before we start going into the details, don't forget to like and subscribe. Should you be thinking about migration? Now, what has happened that triggered that thought of migration? The reasons why you're thinking you should be migrating are those reasons kind of valid? In terms of where are you going to go? What are your criterias? The things that you are missing in your current kingdom, are you gonna get them in the new kingdom? Now, these are the questions that we are gonna talk about in this video. And as an example, I'm going to use my two accounts where I have migrated combined over 15 times, and that's a lot of waste. Now, when I look back, I think about it, and I think maybe 5 or 6 migration between the two accounts was kind of justified. Not all those 15 times. The migration costs you a lot. Either you're buying passports through your own money, cash, or you are buying using Alliance credit, which you could have used to get speed ups and things like that. So definitely you need to take into account the cost of migration before you migrate, and at the same time you need to make sure you got your criterias right. Now, there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone desires different things, and those are the desires that drives the process of migration. So I'm going to use my examples. I'm not going to talk about the KD names. I'm just rather gonna, or the numbers, I'm just gonna talk about the actual situations that kind of made me migrate, and maybe comment a little bit on whether that was a good idea or not, and then that hopefully helps you kind of decide on your own migration criteria, whether you should, and if so, where to. Now let's get started. So I started playing Rise of Kingdoms with my main account about 3 years ago, roughly speaking. The kingdom where I started playing was not necessarily a good kingdom. The reason why I say that is because they had the idea of making 4 main alliances. However, the main alliance would control everything, and the other 3 alliances couldn't kind of get access to the holy sites properly, and they wouldn't get MGE placements, whatever. And then the active main alliance would kind of be recruiting all the higher spenders into that one main alliance. So unless you are in that main alliance, you kind of feel discouraged to play for that kingdom, and that kind of happened to me. And I didn't want to join the main alliance because most of my friends were in, a second or a third alliance, and then we decided to migrate together. So I migrated. So I kind of feel like that's justified. At that time my power wasn't that high, passport cost wasn't that high either. Now, the kingdom that I went to after was a very good kingdom, very organized, very fair every which way, and we started playing our first KVK. That was the first KVK ever in Rise of Kingdoms, and we enjoyed that very much. However, towards the end of the KVK, the leadership team in that KD kind of decided to merge with a couple of other KDs and go into another kingdom, become Imperium and all that. Back then, I don't think the term Imperium was present, but then it was kind of becoming big, I guess. So I migrated with the leadership team because I get along with them very well, and I kind of understood how they're doing whatever they're doing, and I could agree with it very much. So once we migrated in the new kingdom, it was a different story though, and that's to do with 3 kind of kingdoms trying to come together. It did get a bit messy. Not trying to say it was anyone's fault, but then again, when you start managing a kingdom, you will understand it's kind of messy. It's very hectic, and it's a lot of pressure, and especially when you're trying to bring 3 kingdoms together, it's not the easiest. And this is during the early days of migration, so people were not really experts at it, so it was a little bit messy. Now, one of the things that kind of triggered me to migrate out of that, the first one was all the rules and regulations that I was used to and I was comfortable with in the previous KD. When I went to the new one and there were 3 kingdoms, it got messy, firstly. Secondly, when it came to there was something random there that bothered me. Now I think about it, and probably shouldn't have bothered me as much, but then what happened there is They had a few strong alliances, obviously, when you combine three kingdoms. But then in terms of distribution of players, where who should be going and whatever, people who had more of a voice kind of got to be in the alliances they should have been. There were like 6-7 people between whom the leadership or the king title was kind of distributed or shared. And those kings, all of them had 1 or 2 farm accounts in the main alliance, and the justification was, well, we are going to do kingdom buffs with it. But then what that does is takes out like 10 places from the main alliances, and as much as I managed to be in the main alliances, my friends couldn't be. And then to me, like having a farm alliance, I understand if it was one king, maybe one farm account just so that it can do the buffs, but consistently having close to 10 farm accounts of 6 different people at the cost of having actual proper players in the main alliance, I kind of couldn't get along with it. And then because of the other messy sort of situation, we decided to migrate out as well. Now, in terms of this migration, I'm not too sure it was fully justified, but then again, even now, my power was around 50 mil, maybe a little less, so passport cost wasn't that high, so I migrated out again. Now, the next KD that I went to, again, we started off pretty well. There was no dramas there, rules, regulations, everything was kind of okay. The only thing there, which is why I love that KD, was how they organized MGE, or the lack of organization during MGE. And then this is not about whether I'm getting MGE or not, it's more about how every single MGE was free for all. And when you say free for all, if it was, training free for all, I can live with that. It wasn't that though. So the KE was free for all as well, and it was the worst version of free for all. So not only you could feed yourself or get your friends to feed, you could actually kill whoever around. So during those 2 days, you couldn't hit cities, but then people couldn't like farm, barb or whatever. And then I constantly found myself where, okay, well, I'm obviously going to participate in MGE, and then I did feeding and I did killing of my alliance mates or kingdom mates, and then it wasn't kind of fun. All of us, by the time we went into a KVK, we will be depleted already, so it kind of didn't make sense. So obviously migrated out. Now, migrating out was a good decision, but where the decision was wrong is, why did I go into that KD without checking these factors? Well, to be honest, at that time, free for all KVK kind of sounded fair. Coming out of an Imperium KD where getting MG places were quite hard, but then it comes at a cost of not being able to fight in KVK, so didn't think about it before. Well, that's why I'm making the video, so that you can kind of think about it when you are considering your migration. Now, out of that KD, we went into, I have to say, the messiest KD that I have ever been to. Yes, it's worse than free for all KVK. I mean, free for all MGE. So the kingdom that we went to, there were 3 different alliances that were somewhat like the main alliances. One of them was a German alliance, one of them was a Turkish alliance, and the other one, I believe, was a Russian alliance. Now, what do they have in common? Well, every single alliance is European time zone. So how they kind of organize their ARC or alliance events or buffs or whatever, everything was always within the European time zone. So there wasn't a fluctuation, variation for, other people that probably lives around the world. So if you live in the US or if you live in Asia, then you couldn't kind of synchronize your time well. And that's not why I'm saying it's bad. That's probably a little selfish on their part, but then at the same time, not necessarily bad. So the bad thing came in where a civil war started. And yes, a civil war is not something where I want to be part of. Like, I just migrated there. It's not like I have a history. It's not like I have a bond. And if there's a civil war that breaks out about who holds the Zig and whatever, out of those 3 alliances, I couldn't care less about any one of them, so I migrated out. That was costly. Going into that KD was a mistake again, and the mistake was not considering the time zone of the alliances. Now, because I live in Sydney, which is Asian time zone, I cannot go into a KD where there isn't at least one Asian alliance. Now, something similar should be the case for you as well, whichever KD you're thinking about going. I mean, if you're going to a big Imperium KD, it's not an issue, but if you're not going to a massive Imperium KD, you need to consider your time zone and their main few alliances time zone. Say, for example, in the bigger KDs, obviously there are different alliances and people kind of go into different alliances based on their language time zone. It's not an issue in Imperium, but non-Imperium, it is a big issue. Now, moving on, migrating out of that, I probably went to one of the best KDs that I have ever been, and it's a Korean KD. Now, I don't want to sound like I have yellow fetish, even though I do. It's more about how much respect I got for, I guess, Korean gamers in general in terms of their dedication and their nature of being super organized. So in that KD, I played a couple of KVKs. I was happy. I stopped buying passport, never wanted to migrate out. MGE was purely KVK performance based. There was stats and there was, title buffs organized. Everything was like perfect. But then again, the leaders in that KD decided to migrate out together to form a big Imperium KD. So they moved into one of the big Imperium KDs, and then because of my previous experience with an Imperium KD where it wasn't that great, I kind of decided not to follow. So I kind of went my own way, and at this stage I made one of the biggest mistakes ever. So I migrated to a dead kingdom. Now, when I say dead, I mean less active and so on. And then obviously getting MGE over there was very easy. If you wanted to go for Zenith and whatever, it was very easy as well. But then when it came to KVK, you found yourself fighting by yourself, which is not fun. Now, I'm focused on KVK more than ARC, I would say. So I need to... For me to enjoy the game, I need to have a big fighting experience in KVK, and that's fun to me. Whereas if I talk about M, for her, that KD was perfect, because in that KD, even she could get access to newer commanders, and even as a casual player, and then she enjoys things like ARC. So obviously in ARC, you have the better commanders and you can fight, and it's just for an hour. So it suits more casual players. So I'm going to say, if you're thinking about going to a less active or a dead kingdom, as people say, it's not a bad idea if you are a very casual player. You're not going to mind it as much, and you can focus on ARC events and things like that. You will have easier access to commanders. The only bad thing is you're not going to be able to experience KVK well at all, and it's not like you're gonna get a lot of kills in that kingdom as well, despite having, I guess, newer commanders, because end of the day, if you go out with the best of the best commanders but then you have no allies next to you, you're fighting by yourself, you're gonna lose. So, and it's not really true that dead kingdoms are matched together in a KVK. The dead kingdom I'm talking about, I faced 1v in that kingdom in a KVK. So dead kingdoms, based on their power, often match up with bigger KDs as well. So it's not like you're gonna get too many KVK wins out of that. It's just the MGE, and that's pretty much it. And then I made an even bigger mistake. I migrated back to KVK 2. Now, the reason why I say it was a big mistake, not to do with the kingdom that I went to or anything, it's to do with the fact that I went back to KVK 2. When you go back to KVK 2, you miss out on commanders. And when you eventually come back to Season of Conquest, you're so far behind in commander depth that it feels like it wasn't worth it. So I made the mistake. Anyways, then when we came back to Season of Conquest, the previous leaders of that kingdom decided to kind of step down, and then there was kind of a vacuum within the leadership space. Quite a few people put their hands up, and the people that put their hands up kind of didn't know much about leadership. They were kind of running it more in a noob and / selfish way, where a lot of migration happened, where we got players with high power, no kills, no deads, and then the kingdom kind of became high powered. We matched against opponents that we didn't have the ability to fight, and even in terms of leadership throughout the KVK, even during KVK, there was many different decisions in terms of what to communicate, what not to communicate, and then how to do deploy. Everything kind of fell apart, And then even during MGE, it was kind of funny, like kingdom stats, what are the measures of how to give points for certain activities and whatnot, who to award with MGs and whatnot. All of that kind of went all over the place. It was kind of done on the run. Halfway through an MG, decision would be changed about whether it's fixed or not, or halfway after the KVK even decision was made about, okay, no, we are gonna value this more than the other and whatnot. It just didn't feel like a good experience. I'm not saying the people were bad or anything. I'm just saying that by that time I have played the game for a while and experienced different leadership styles within the game or management types within the game, and then I kind of felt like I need to be in a kingdom where leadership is a little bit better, or more experienced leaders, I would say, where they kind of can read what the kingdom needs and what the players are kind of hoping for and so on, which is actually very simple. Do kingdom stats properly, have set parameters for kingdom stats in terms of, what aspect gives you whatever point and whatnot, and then do all MGs based on that. It's actually quite simple. And then when it comes to buffs and whatever, spread it out so that everyone in the kingdom can kind of enjoy them. And then lastly, probably people enjoy the leadership styles of the R4s and R5s, where they're approachable and you kind of get directions, proper directions, and people kind of explain why they're doing whatever doing, especially when they're making big judgment calls, but at the same time doesn't send like 5-page emails and markers and Discord, and all of that is done properly. So usual basic stuff. Now we have come to the end of the journey, I think, and afterwards I migrated to one of the kingdoms that I played in before, and I'm in 1348 now, which is the kingdom that you see me playing in. And now that I realized I'm talking for more than 15 minutes in this video already, we're not gonna go into the story of the alt. The alt now, as you know, is in 1365 and enjoying playing there a lot. Very organized kingdom with great people and great leaders. So unless 1365 decides to kick me out for some reason, I'm never going out of there. Now, when it comes to my main account though, I am considering going into big Imperium KD, and that's to bring you the best gaming experience. And when I say gaming experience, I mean through videos and live streams and so on. Now, it doesn't just have to be videos and live streams. You can consider joining me in one of the big Imperium KDs when I make the move. Now, for now, I am actually thinking about 1556. This is not a final decision, but I have been talking to the leaders over there, and then I have been observing their KVK, and that kind of feels like a KD where I will feel at home amongst many big fighters and be part of historically big KVKs against other big strong Imperium kingdoms. Now, I'm not necessarily saying 1556 is the best choice for you guys as well. I'm just thinking that's the best for me. Now, in terms of finding out what's the best kingdom for you, you need to find out and make a list of what's important to you. Is it, playing in Arc League? Is it winning KVKs? Is it winning MGEs? Is it participating in the biggest KVKs? Whatever it may be, once you have that list, you get in touch with kingdoms that are recruiting or the leaders of the kingdoms that you want to be in, join their Discord, talk to the people, get a feel of how the people are, maybe send a farm over in that kingdom so that you can see some of the kingdom communication. All these things will give you a good hint of what you are to expect when you join that kingdom. Now, lastly, what I'm going to say is, based on everything that I said, if it sounds like a difficult idea to go through all of that, then just go for one of the big Imperiums. Say, for example, if you go to 1365, rules and regulations and the people, one of the best over there. If you want to join Ladus Gaming in his adventures, then 1556 is an option as well. Now, if you managed to relate to this video or found this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.